The multiple changes that there has been in the tariff regimes emanating from the US from a starting point, but also with some of the answers that we have seen in China, has been a significant disruptions to our customers' supply chain. The immediate reaction for a lot of them has been to take a wait-and-see position, either trying to slow down the shipments of goods, find some bonded solutions at destinations, while they try to figure out whether these tariffs are going to stick, what they need to do about it, and how they're going to manage the demands that their end customers have. How much is still going to be consumed? How much are they still going to sell? And this is something that is actually still playing out at this stage, which means that now they have some decisions to make in terms of either alternate sourcing, looking at different product lines, different ways of managing their supply chain, which is the conversation that is ongoing right now, and where our team globally is playing a role into trying to inform them on how to navigate these very uncertain waters. So far, what we have seen in terms of impact of the tariff regime has been primarily observable on the China-US trade, just because the size of the tariffs implemented is so much higher than what we have seen in the rest of the world. But we shouldn't forget that the amount of tariffs that have been implemented with the basic 10% is already a significant impact on the cost picture that our customers are going to be faced with. So far, demand has continued unabated because customers are also looking for alternative sourcing to China so that they can get to the lower band of tariff. But ultimately, what is going to mean something is whether consumer sentiment in the US stays low. It has already been adjusted, but stays low for a longer time, and this actually results in lower sales off the shelves, whether it's automotive, technology, or retail. If that seems to happen, then we will see an impact percolate around the volumes in more origins than just China for sure. And that's what we're prepared to deal with in case this was to happen. So whether the US is going to go into a recession or not is one of the big questions that we're faced with today. And I think from our perspective, it is very clear that unless we see some mitigation in some of the tariffs that have been rolled out today, it is very likely that we will see significant rebound of inflation in the US, and that is likely to trigger also a negative customer sentiment and probably a recession. We need, though, to remind ourselves about the level of uncertainty we're dealing with. Just given the size of the shock, we have to go about 100 years back in history to find something similar, but also given how these tariffs have been implemented and how some of the policy decisions are being made, which creates a lot of uncertainty in the business at this stage and in just the global economic climate. So this is something where agility is actually really important. And this is, it couldn't be more timely for us to have rolled out our Gemini and having a modular network that allows us to cope with these fluctuations in demands, have the logistics offering that allows us to play a closer role with the customers as they're navigating this. It gives us some insights to deal with this. For me, there are two key aspects to think about when we think about trading policy. First of all, we have seen over the past decade or two an increased distortion between the amount of imports that we're doing from China and the amount of exports that we're sending back to China. And this, at some point, creates some imbalances that will need to be dealt with. It is not sustainable to have as large a trade deficit with China as what the US is having today or what Europe is actually having today. The second thing that is important to remember, though, is that from a business perspective, predictability and clear rules is absolutely fundamentals. And these fundamentals today are not there. Whether the tariff is the right or the wrong way to deal with some of these imbalances that have emerged over the last decade or two, that remains to be seen. But what is very clear under all circumstances is that business need a certain amount of certainty in order to be able to make the decisions that we want to make. It is very hard for a company to choose today whether to leave China, to go somewhere else, if you're not sure about what the tariffs are going to be out of China or what the trading regime is going to be out of China, or you're not sure what it's going to be in the alternate sourcing area that you're going to have. If you don't have that certainty, you're paralyzed and you can't make the decisions that ultimately would lead to resorbing some of these distortions that we're seeing. So that is really important. I think there is some key things that need to be brought back in line with respect to the trading relations that the major economies are having with China. There is a way to do it, and the way to protect and to minimize the impact of these changes, which are complicated to execute, is actually to provide business with the highest possible amount of certainty as they have to engage in that transformation.